Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a wonderful Thursday, April 30th. No games, obviously, still in quarantine mode. Everybody's there, but we have a great show lined up for you today. Going to talk a little bit LA Galaxy season ticket policy. We have a whole bunch of stuff whenever it comes to Governor Newsom and his 4 stages of reopening California, so we're going to talk about that. The COG food truck coming to Carson. We have some interesting stuff on that. And then Gonzalo Higuain to the LA Galaxy. Could that possibly be a thing? Yeah, it could possibly be a thing. Not to mention, coming down the line, not too far away, if everything works right and everybody actually sent communications on time, we'll be joined by LA Galaxy Defender Dan Steres. So that coming up in just a few minutes. But to help me do all of that, the Hammer himself, looking way nicer than the host of the show, is back. Eric, the Portuguese Hammer. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
It's going well. If you can't tell, I'm bored. So I decided to bust out the old suit. I wear a tie semi-regularly for work, and so believe it or not, as uncomfortable as it may seem, I actually missed getting dressed and picking out a tie and shirt combination. And so I said, you know what? It's a special event. It's the end of April. We made it. We survived. I'm throwing the suit on today. So sorry. I know, it's not a competition. Everyone's safe space here. But, I felt like I won best dressed tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, except you don't have any pants on. That's the difference. So, I was going to say it's a little warm, so we'll do that. We are having our end of April party, and people ask, well, what's an end of April party? It's celebrating the fact that we all made it through another month. That's really what it is. We'll have an end of May party as well coming up at the end of May. If we have all made it through that, knock on wood, we'll have one, and it'll be there. If not, have fun at my funeral. I don't know what to tell you. So we'll get through that as we go. I wanted to start off this show, though, Eric, and it's a lot of questions of being asked about the LA Galaxy, a lot of questions being asked about Major League Soccer whenever it comes to the season ticket policy. Now, the Panda himself went and wrote an article talking about LAFC and LA Galaxy's ticket policy, and from the MLS perspective about how all these tickets are going to sort of be managed. Now, Eric, as you understand it, and as we've seen that the LA Galaxy say that, yeah, maybe we're going to refund some stuff whenever they actually cancel some games, but so far they haven't canceled any games. So how can we do that?
Yeah, that's the catch-22 is, they're willing, it seems like they're willing to refund or willing to defer payments when games are canceled. It just, we're in that weird no man's land where the games haven't officially been canceled. So that's where it gets into this gray area. We know with the April payment, they gave season ticket members the option. If you wanted to defer that payment to a later date, you could, or you could pay it. It seems like the notice was a little bit of a short notice. And so I know that a lot of season ticket members had a little bit of an issue, especially not, checking emails regularly at this time. It seems like the default should have been the opposite, but it's easier. On the other side of it, you can look back and say that, but the default maybe should have been, we're going to defer it, but if you want to keep that payment going, to keep that payment lower, we could, but without any games, it just seems like it's done in bad faith to charge them. And, to be devil's advocate, you kind of have to understand where the Galaxy is coming from, because there's no money coming in right now. And if you as a season ticket member are okay with that, your card being charged and that money staying, and if you want to defer that payment further, you can, or if you want to leave it in the Galaxy's hands and use it as a credit for next year, you have that option. And so I think that's what's going to benefit the club the most. So if you're someone of that mind who wants to help the club out in that way, you're more than welcome to do so. But I think with a lot of financial instability, with a lot of people losing work, people being furloughed, people being laid off, it seems like the first option should be to refund people who are in the most need and need that money back. Because there's probably some people out there who started the year off right, things were going well, bought some season tickets, and then now they're going to need that money back. And so I think it's an effort in good faith if they could make that the default is to get that money back, which it seems like the league is leaving it up to the club. So every club's in a different financial situation. So we'll see how they handle it. But to me, that's just my opinion on how it should be handled. But I'm going to be curious if anything else shakes out. I saw with Major League Baseball, there was actually a lawsuit filed against because they were charging people for games and not giving them an option. So that actually created a lawsuit. Several fans, filed a class action lawsuit for being charged. So reading the tea leaves and things like that with other sports leagues, that's what's kind of setting the precedent with the NBA and their closure. That kind of was the first domino to drop. So if there's a lawsuit going on because people are being charged when there's no games, you kind of have to get ahead of that and avoid the stain that would be if that gets out to be a story in the news.
Yeah, it certainly seems that it's going to be interesting. This is what was in Kevin's article. He talked to Brendan Hannon, team's vice president of marketing and communications, and Brendan says, we're still deciding what our plan will be for the month of May. We want to do what's best for our fans and our members. It is something that we're discussing and hoping to roll out by the end of the week or early next week. Hannon said refunds for games that have been affected but not canceled would be considered on a case-by-case basis, as would requests from season ticket holders whose financial situation had been adversely affected by the coronavirus. It's still MLS, by the way, chimed in on this as well from an executive who was not authorized to discuss the league's ticketing policy, but said our goal is to play as many matches as possible, and mathematically, we can still play all the matches. If any matches are officially canceled or played without fans, you can apply for credit to your account, and if the best solution for you is not a credit, then you can apply hopefully for a refund for those canceled matches. So that's obviously everybody says it's a difficult time. We're trying to support our fans in any way that we can. So I mean that's sort of my question though, Eric, is and I think you touched on it a little bit, but is rescheduling games sort of a poor excuse right now to hold on to people's money until there's. I mean, listen. I'm 99% convinced that you're not going to get 34 games out of this, especially if you look at all the stuff that we're going to talk about in California. So at this point, do we know?
Yeah, and the other thing that I think is going to be an interesting issue is going to be, let's say that they miraculously, that 0.1% chance that there are 34 games, they find a way to miraculously schedule 34 games starting on June 8th through December or January, and they're able to make that work. There's going to be a large section of the population that is not going to want to attend those games. So yes, your games are now scheduled, but now what if you're a season ticket member and you don't want to attend those games? How are they going to handle those refunds? Is that a refundable item? Do you get a credit for that? Because there has to be a little grace there also, because you have to understand public gatherings that, high risk, people with health situations, they may not want to go to the stadium, and I don't think they should be held, responsible if that's their prerogative to no longer attend games.
Yeah, you talk about safety, and that's going to be such a huge thing as we move anywhere near fans getting back in the stadium. We're going to have a whole bunch of questions. I reached out to Reddit, the LA Galaxy Reddit people. They're going to ask some of those questions. I think we're going to have a time to talk about all of those and sort of do all that stuff. So, it's going to be one of those things where we watch. It just feels like we can still play all the games. Is like it's just this line, and it's a bad line, and I don't like it. It is about teams holding on to money right now and holding on to money in a bad financial, economy, right? Everything's sort of tanked. Nobody knows. So cash in hand for them is really important. So from a business side, I understand why they're sort of making that stance. But as a humanity side, you sit there and Eric, you can't hold on to somebody's money whenever they just lost their job when they were spending on something, which is, sports is not a mandatory need. I know we feel like it is, but it's not a mandatory need. So you can't sit there and say, oh, definitely you're going to need to do this. You have to pay for this anyway. So it's one of those things where we sit there and you can't do it, especially whenever we get into California, which may not have fans in the stadium until, mid 2021 at this point. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to be, but certainly it's going to be longer than just reopening the economy and doing stuff. Sports and concerts and all those things seem like they're the last resort right now. And so whenever you look at Major League Soccer, you look at LA Galaxy, if I'm Major League Soccer, I feel like I'd want to have a more cohesive plan. That's sort of my only argument, which is, I want to be consistent across all the groups. That was one of the reasons that we have single entity, Eric, is to be consistent and have some of this stuff. And it seems like, hey, yeah, it's single entity whenever we want it to be, whenever we don't, which is true, by the way. This is exactly how they operate. It's single entity when we want it to be, and it's and do different things on that. So, it's always interesting whenever you try to nail down Major League Soccer.
Yeah, and the same thing's kind of happening on a government front as well. There are some, federal mandates that are being pushed forward, but for the large portion, they're saying it's in the states' hands. It's however states want to handle it. So it's kind of similar. And just to peel back the curtain on a little bit of what I do, same thing with school districts. The school district could make a sweeping recommendation, but if there's individual schools and populations where a system is working for them, but it may not work at another population, then changes need to be made. You can't make a sweeping thing league wide or school wide or country wide. So we see we always run into that argument. Is this is this a federal thing or is this a state thing? Is this a league thing or is this a club thing? And so I think the real answer and the hammer answer out of both sides of my mouth is it's somewhere in the middle. Is you give a blanket recommendation and then leave a little bit of flexibility to allow teams to adjust to their individual situations.
Well, we'll set this aside. I'm sure we can have more ticketing policy talk. But right now, we're excited to have our next guest on. Born in Burbank and calling Calabasas his hometown, he's a graduate of San Diego State University and alumni of LA Galaxy 2. He's amassed over 8,500 minutes in Major League Soccer, 102 games played, 7 goals since getting a first-team call-up in 2016. We're glad to welcome back to the show for the very first time since 2016, actually, LA Galaxy defender Dan Steres. Dan, are you there?
I'm here. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great. See, it worked again, Eric. You were worried, and it worked again. No problems. Easy to. Dan, every time we try to do this live, we're convinced it's not going to work. So we're glad that we got you on, and there were no problems. So I guess the first thing I want to ask you, let's talk about quarantine first, because that's sort of where everybody's at, and we talked about talked about it with Dennis DeCloso as well. I imagine no haircuts going on. How are you handling everything, and sort of what's your daily routine like right now?
Yeah, we're kind of making do, but it's weird. It's become almost kind of normal, waking up and doing this whole thing. It's 6 weeks or something like that, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but it's what we got to do. But yeah, I mean, we're waking up pretty early over here. We just got a puppy during this quarantine. Thought it was a good time. So That's definitely keeping us busy, waking up at 6 o'clock, keeping a routine. But yeah, getting in workouts here at my place, as much as I can do in the streets, riding a bike, whatnot. Just trying to keep eating healthy. That's all we can really do at this point. And, just hanging around.
I was going to say, before we get too far, we need to know puppy's name and the type of puppy. Those are important things in quarantine right now.
Important stuff, yeah. Puppy's name is Remington, going by Remy for short. He's a German short-hair pointer, so he needs a lot of exercise. He's got a lot of energy, so we're getting out of the house quite a bit.
That's good. That's not too bad. And the weather's been nice too, so that's good. One of the questions that we actually had from a listener who was writing in on Reddit was asking sort of a question of how the team's keeping in contact with you. What do you guys have a group chat going on? Do you guys conference call? I mean, how do you sort of keep this team dynamic going right now when there's no way for you guys to sort of be in the locker room and sort of having that locker room experience?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you can't replace going into the locker room every day, seeing all the guys. But yeah, I mean, we've got our group chats, we've got Zoom, we've got all different things. People are messaging on Instagram or whatever it is. So we're all staying in touch, different ways. No one's really too far away. I don't think anyone really got out of the market here. So. We're staying in contact with the training staff. The coaches are doing a good job of kind of corralling us to have little meetings or sessions to talk about things. So we're doing a decent job. It's not going to replace going in day out, but we're doing what we can here.
Yeah. So Dan, you mentioned that you're getting together with Zoom and different kinds of chat. Just now that this is our new normal, going and attending meetings via Skype, via Zoom. Who's the one person on the LA Galaxy roster who just doesn't have it figured out, doesn't have the mute button? Is there anyone like that? It seems like there's always one in every meeting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys that probably, walk into a meeting that don't look like they're ready for it or weren't prepared. But, some of the younger guys, they're probably not sure the professionalism. I just go with that. Some of the younger guys, stepping in outside when there's noise everywhere or, in their car or something like that if they're coming back from something. But yeah, we're trying to keep it as professional as possible. And most of us are here in the tech age, kind of know what we're doing. So
I was going to say, you can see our professionalism here, Dan. One of us is wearing a suit, and one of us has a T-shirt on. So I just,
Yes, it's sharp over there. Looking
Serious
sharp.
business.
You guys got the professional mics and stuff, so you're set up.
That's hey, we're doing what we can at quarantine time. I have a question for you, and it's sort of one that involves, NBA's talking about coming back. There's some different guys are talking about, different leagues are starting to talk about coming back and doing different things, and maybe going to a place and playing closed door games and just a single location and all that stuff. You're a player. What concerns do you have about all of this? Because I feel like it's different than whenever fans say, "Oh, we'll just put the players in closed doors and let the players play." I feel like there's more to it than just saying that. So, what concerns do you have as a player?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think it's that easy, really. Even trying to do a closed door thing, you have to go to a single location, and wherever that may be, there can't be much spread of the virus there. Then you got to put us in a hotel sort of thing that's got to be essentially locked down. I mean, you just can't have any touch with the outside world, and that's
Right.
really impossible. And unless you're going to hold us there for 6 weeks, 12 weeks to get enough games in to count as like a pseudo season or tournament, we're going to be going back to our homes. We're going to be going back to our families who, as much as everyone's trying to stay in, they got to either go to work or they got to go to the grocery store or the farm, whatever it is. It's pretty tough to really stop anyone from having any contact with anything. And then it comes down to, okay, do some teams have players that have been in contact? Do they have it? Do you need to then take those players out of the teams? And then are we just playing games with 75% of our teams? One team has a DP out, another team has no one out. I mean, it's just different things that kind of come into it. I want to get back to playing. I want to get back to training. It's just tough for me to see an easier, good way to do it that you can just, as a fan or anyone, be like, yeah, let's just do that. I think they're kind of racking their brains around anything they can possibly come up with at this point.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have heard much or not, but it sounds like they're trying to do whatever they can to get some sort of season going. So hopefully they can come up with a good plan.
I was going to say, then, does that put you on the pessimistic side of a season returning right now? I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm on the pessimistic side. I don't see a clear path, and I've talked to players and hear the same things echoed by you, and it doesn't seem like there's answers enough for this. So, I mean, does that sort of, what sort of mental state does that put you in then to sort of say, hey, is there even going to be a season?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit on that. I mean, here in California, we're pretty strict right now with the lockdown, and I mean, they've mentioned we're not going to have gatherings, I think, of like 100 people or something for the rest of the year.
Right.
I mean, you hear that, it's like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to have to go somewhere else. There's really no way we can do anything here. I think we just don't know what's going on. It's day by day. It's week by week. I mean, if they come up with a vaccine tomorrow, then yeah, there's a season probably in a month. So it's just, we're all just waiting. I mean, we're doing our best to stay ready, stay fit, doing our programs here. So I'm not going to say I'm pessimistic about it not getting back to any sort of season. It's just what type of season or what type of games that looks like. And, it's unfortunate because no matter what you do now, it's not an MLS season. It's tough to compare. It's tough to say, any team gets to the end of the road, the other teams might be looking at them like, it was 2020. It was that year. Can we really count on, that sort of thing. So I guess you could call me on the pessimistic side, but I'm just here trying to wait and see what happens and do the right thing this is more than just the soccer. This is about everyone else too. So.
Yeah, we've had the joke here is that whatever machination of the season is, it's not an MLS season. There shouldn't be an MLS Cup. It should be the Coronavirus Cup or whatever name they want to come up with. Something different. Just to go back kind of to a regular season as an offensive player. expectations can be measurable with goals and assists, but as a defender, maybe it's not as measurable. When you go into a season, do you set any goals for the season? And if so, what are your goals and how do you work towards getting there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely got to set some goals. They're not always, hard numbers, specific things. For me, it's kind of a reliability thing. I wanna be able to be on the field and help my team as much as possible. I pride myself on some of the years where I've led the team in minutes or been close to the top, and that's to me, whether I've been hurt or not throughout the years, saying that I'm there week in, week out, ready to perform. And so for me, that's something I always try to pride myself on, is things like that. Obviously, I've got goals of scoring goals I'm trying to get. Shutouts are big for me, and defensive numbers as far as how many goals we let in. Things like that are definitely what defenders look at, what I look at. But yeah, then there's other little things I'll throw in there, and things that just are simple day-to-day things, simple goals for the season of just how to make myself better.
Yeah, there was a point last season, a good little run where you were second in the team goals category. So for a little chunk there at the beginning. So kudos to you for getting there.
Usually after a hot start, I got to figure out how to continue that throughout the year, though.
Well, I mean, and that's you sort of talk about reliability, and we talk about the LA Galaxy getting through 2 games, both of which you didn't get to play in. I mean, is it even? It felt like you were close to coming back whenever the Miami game was coming up, and there were sort of questions about whether or not you'd be in the starting lineup for that. But you missed the first 2 games, and then the season gets canceled, or at least postponed on the 3rd game. I mean, are you itching to get back? I mean, is there something about you? You're like, that was not the time that it needed to stop. Maybe 1 game later would have been a little bit better for you, but right now, sort of, it's a little up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that kind of the other way is I've been dealing with fighting some injuries to get back on the field for 2 months of preseason and the beginning of the season. I was getting really close, still building some fitness. So kind of looking at that whole situation of maybe getting back from Miami and then calling it right there was, okay, I might actually have a week here that I can really get fit and really be ready.
Right.
And obviously it led to more and more time. And so that's been my main focus during this kind of quarantine time. But yeah, I mean, I'm itching to get back on the field. I played 2 preseason games that I was basically just forcing myself through to get on the field for something during preseason, and I've just been dealing with some nagging issues. So yeah, I want to get back to playing. It's been a long time for me, and still have taste of last year and stuff like that.
Well, with the 6 weeks that you've had, you feeling close to 100% now? That you feel fully rested?
Yeah, we're getting there. We've been working on some things, and I can't sit here and say that just resting has really completely gotten rid of everything,
Right.
which is a little unfortunate, but I have no doubts that within whatever, a month, 2 months more back, I'll be 100%. We're getting there. We're getting close.
That's good. Eric, do you have one more question for Dan, and then I'll finish up?
Yeah, got one more. So, the way you answered your Zoom question was, very professional. So there's a lot of talk with, teammates and behaviors in the locker room and quotes kind of getting twisted out of context. So I wouldn't wish that upon you. So I'm just going to ask kind of a positive question here. Who's been a great teammate that stands out to you and why? And again, you're not putting anyone on the spot. You're not picking a favorite, but is there anyone who stands out that, has either helped you develop or, there's been great to work with on the field or even off the field?
Current or anyone that I've had in my career?
Yeah, current or anyone. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of guys in those early years that definitely you could call mentors or help me out. AJ is one that comes to mind immediately. My first year, he was playing, and I kind of came in and ended up playing over him for some games, and the way he responded to that and fought for his spot also on the line there, and just kind of took me under his wing, even with that going on. So much respect for that guy and everything he's done. So that's one for sure. And we're still good friends, which is great. Then obviously like Ash and Yella, both also took me under their wings that year. Playing with those guys is pretty incredible. And then there's some other guys like Gordo and those guys, Baggio, that were just off the field. It was that sort of mentorship more than what they did on the field or in a soccer way. Just how they went about things, how they made things light. I mean, the locker rooms back then were great, and I think that showed on the field. So those are definitely some guys that stand out. And then Stevie was one that, just because of what I thought of him before this whole thing, I mean, when he was playing at Liverpool and all that, and kind of some of the confidence he gave me when I started helped me really blossom and kind of feel good about my abilities and that I can step in and play. So I've always been grateful for that and some of those guys.
I think it's funny. You mentioned AJ De La Garza helping you out, and he helped our show out a whole bunch too. He was on in some of our early years, so we have that in common. But you also talk about guys like Steven Gerrard. You talk about Ashley Cole. Legends of the game. I'm sure as you were growing up, as I was growing up, as well. Do you ever have to pinch yourself? I mean, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is the same way. Do you ever have to sort of say, I'm playing on the field with these guys? Does it get old? Or do you get that sort of, hey, I am playing on the field with these guys. This is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I get that sort of question a lot, obviously, hometown friends and all that. It is some of those moments, like I mentioned, Steve and Ash. It's kind of ridiculous. I was playing on the field with them and I was watching them as a kid and, idolizing them. But like Ash is one of the greatest guys I've ever met in this game. I mean, the guy is top guy, and Stevie the same. Respect for every guy on the field. So it's pretty incredible. But the way they invite you in, the way they make you feel like you're just, they're one of us, we're one of them. I think that's kind of what drops that a little bit and drops your guard, and you can go, okay, this is my teammate and stuff like that. Right. And then they want to play with you. They instill confidence in you. And both of them did that throughout my career, and that makes me feel like, I can be playing with these guys. I should be playing with these guys. Why not? I mean, they've been on incredible teams, had unbelievable moments in careers, but for the time they were in, I was, playing on the same team with them, and that's what it was.
That's fun. All right, Dan. Well, we're going to let you go. We want you to stay safe, obviously, and hopefully we'll get you back on and you can tell us all about how the season's getting ready to kick back off and the Galaxy are ready to go. We'll keep our fingers crossed that that's sooner rather than later. So all the best, and our best to Remington as well. Hopefully you guys have some fun playing with the new puppy. All right, Dan?
All right, it's going to be a blast. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully we'll be talking once the season's going again.
All right, thanks. There goes Dan Steres, LA Galaxy Defender. Whew. You know what? It's nice to have a current player on. I know we've been having a string of really awesome guests, and I'm not complaining, but having a current player on, somebody who can tell you what's going on with the team right now and how they're sort of feeling. And the big thing, and I had hinted at this before in some of our podcasts, Eric, is that players are concerned about what it's going to be like to return. And I think that a lot of times as fans, we're not taking that into consideration in terms of, even reporters, fans, followers, supporters, however you want to look at it. You're not figuring out. I mean, there's unanswered questions, just simply sequestering people in a hotel for 6 weeks. And it's going to be longer than that. This isn't the NHL that has, a couple weeks left, or, the NBA that has, a limited time left in sort of these things, or even the EPL, which has, we have like 5 weeks left and we can get it all done and we can play all these games. This is 2 games into a 34-game season. So technically you have 32 games to play. This is a huge undertaking. And for Major League Soccer, makes it more difficult to sort of find a pathway forward, at least right now for me.
Yeah, and I think that's where having a current player like Dan on really highlights that point, because as, with a fan perspective, when you look at it, you say, put these guys in a closed door room and for 12 weeks, sequester them in Arizona and, and we're done. And then you have them on and you realize, he's a human being and he has a puppy and he has family that he has to see. And he has, and other players have family members who they may have, people who are grocery workers or nurses who live with them. And now do you test them? So they, it makes it real. So yes, in a perfect world, if you're running the simulation on a computer, you could say, okay, sequester these players for a certain amount of weeks and knock these games out. But then you have to peel back and realize this isn't a computer simulation. These are human beings with lives and other people in their circles or in their bubbles. And those are things that we need to consider. And that's where it makes you realize that maybe, it's not like the NBA where you're just closing out something where if you're going to try to start something from scratch from here, it's going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to be optimistic. I feel like it's more realistic. Yeah, exactly. I feel like we're more on the realistic side of things right now, just trying to figure that out, Eric. Let's go to Governor Newsom, because this is an important part of, California certainly reopening, and sort of when we think we could expect live sports in California. And I would say if you want to be in the stadium cheering on any team of professional sports, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Kings, the Ducks, the Golden State Warriors. Let's see, the San Jose Sharks. No, nobody's not the Earthquakes. No, that doesn't work. Any of those. But if you want to do that, I will tell you this right now. You have a long way to wait. It looks like as things are going, that I wouldn't expect anything until maybe this time next year. Really, in terms of everybody 100% back to normal. You're back in stadiums. You're back in cheering. All that stuff. Sure, I can guess. Say it's 12 months from now. That seems logical, but Governor Gavin Newsom came out with his sort of guidelines of how he's going to do that. And so we're going to go over those here real quick, just in case you didn't see them. I'm sure you did, because then what else do you have to do but to talk about this stuff, I'm sure. He comes out with tweets, and he said it on his press conference, and then he tweeted it out as well. He says California is flattening the curve, but the reality is that COVID-19 is not going away soon. Our reopening must be gradual, guided by public health and science, and will be done in the following stages. There are 4 stages. We're currently in stage number 1, staying home, flattening the curve, building out testing, PPE, and hospital capacity, making our essential workplaces as safe as possible, and preparing sector-by-sector guidelines for safe reopening. Stage 2, which we're told is weeks away, not months away. Stage 2 is opening the lower risk workplaces. So gradually reopening some of those places, including retail with these adaptations, which is retail with curbside pickup. By the way, can we never have curbside pickup ever go away? Because I didn't have to get out of my car today, and I went to 2 shops in order to get some food and some stuff that we needed to have. Didn't have to get out. And that went with like alcohol, all that stuff. Did not have to get out of the car. Kind of like that. So if we could just keep that whenever the beer delivery thing is also real high. Let's keep that. We've realized society will not fall apart, Eric, if you deliver beer via vehicles. So, we should try that.
Might be safer. Might be safer to bring it to my house instead of me drive somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Because I might be drunk on the way. I wouldn't be drunk on the way. That doesn't happen. Anyway. So they talk about that. They talk about manufacturing. They talk about offices where telework is not possible. This is in the second stage. And like we said, middle of May seems like a good time for that to happen. That seems like that could be happening, and more public spaces are going to go up. So that's stage 2. Let's get to stage 3. It's the higher risk workplaces. Now, this is months away. Whether it's 2 months or whether it's 8 months, I don't know. But you're looking at the higher risk workplaces, includes personal care, hair salons, nail salons, gyms, movie theaters, sports without live audiences, and in-person religious services. So the sports without live audiences, which means, hey, you guys can go play if you want, but there can be nobody there to watch you. Which, again, it feels like stage 3 and stage 4, which is eventually concerts, convention centers, live audience sports, getting back. That's 100% back to normal. There's like no restrictions. And that's when stage 4, by the way, is when the stay-at-home order actually gets lifted. So all these stages, stay-at-home order is in, except for 4 when it finally gets. So those are the stages that are being laid out right now. We know stage 3 is in-person sports without audiences, and stage 4 is sort of those big events that you're going to be able to go back to the stadium for. So, I mean, Eric, what do you see whenever you see all these different stages? I mean, do you get a warm and fuzzy feeling like everything's going to be back to normal real soon?
Well, it's nice to have the stages in place, but I think, Governor Newsom made these comments because we're getting to the point from the stay-at-home order where people are getting very antsy. You saw the number of people at the beach, you saw the number of people out, exercising and for walks. People are kind of, they're over it, from staying at home. So I think this plan needed to be set forward. But the brakes need to be pumped a little bit as well, because this is all in conditional that the curve continues to flatten. New cases, we go consecutive days without new cases being unveiled, and so that just I like the plan. It's good to have these things in phases. You can't just say rip the Band-Aid off and say, okay, everyone let's go back to the stadium, and then risk having something like this break out even further. The whole the second wave conversation. So I agree with the fact of this being in phases, but I also think that this phase one might have to last a little bit longer than maybe people are comfortable with, and that's a hard conversation to have. And with just human nature, it's hard. When you tell someone to do something, they want to do the opposite. And so it just seems like the more you push on these things, you're always going to have the other side of it that that pushes back on it. So I understand why the plan was put out, because people wanted to know, listen, we can't stay inside forever. What's the plan? What's going to happen down the line? And that's something that I'm getting in my place of work as well. Is we can't do this forever. We need to figure out a plan to figure out whatever these next steps are. And so the unfortunate part is that we don't have the answers yet. And so people are working hard tirelessly to figure out answers to things that we don't know if they're going to work. It's all going to be case by case and testing it out and see if it works. So, I'm on board. I'm on board with the phases. I don't think phase one is going to be peeled off as soon as maybe people want.
Yeah, I would just like to point out that while I am in Orange County, I was not at the beach over the weekend. Even though sure? I'm positive. I was not there. Yeah, I was not there. I guarantee it.
Not a good thing to say right now either.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, it's these are all things. Listen, it was unbelievably hot over the weekend, and whenever that comes to, there may be some indications that whenever it's hot outside, that it might be that the virus itself doesn't last as long. I'm not trying to spread false information. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know that scientists know 100% if it's true or not. We don't have that information, and a lot of these stages, especially whenever you get into like stage 3, stage 4. Are relying on, and this is the same argument you have for playing behind closed doors or eventually coming back in full stadiums, is relying on technology or science that has not happened yet. And so we wait and we watch. And, maybe we get some good news about a viral drug that now seems to at least have some effect in helping people recover faster. So we can look at all these things and try to put them in here, but the bottom line is stage 4 to me is a 2021 stage. I think stage 3 could happen as early as maybe August, maybe even September. If it's November, I wouldn't be surprised. Listen, if it's any part of the second half of the year, I wouldn't be surprised for stage 3. I would be real surprised if stage 4, which is us back at the stadium, back at Dignity Health Sports Park, high-fiving, hugging, doing. I don't know. Is that stuff does that ever going to happen again, Eric? In our lifetime, did we see the total sea change? Are we ever going to hug again?
I think people are going to have to untrain themselves, because I'm someone who likes to take a shirt off on occasion when a goal goes in. So, your instinct is to hug someone, high five someone. But I think now, maybe we're going to adopt, the bow or the head nod or, the elbow bump. People, it's going to be different when things open up. So, we'll see how this all pans out.
Gavin Newsom closed with, I know we're all ready for life to go back to normal, but it's unbelievably important we reopen our economy in a scientific, thoughtful way guided by public health. Our stores will look different. Offices will operate differently, but we will be healthier, hopefully. I mean, that's the I don't have I don't want this to be political, so it's difficult for me to even say this. I don't have a problem with what he's saying. To me, it's science-based, and science to me is not political, even whenever people really try to make it political. So
yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing is, you have a governor making a statement and laying out the phases, and if you say something, it's like, well, why are we talking politics? It's like, no, these are the phases, these are the laws, these are the things, that people are going to be faced with, whether you like it or you don't like it. This is what we're going to be looking at. The other thing that I will mention is, you do say, technology and testing. And if we do get to a point where you're able to test people or you're able to use some type of technology, we also have to be real with the fact that, if the Galaxy doesn't have that ticket money coming in, are they going to have money to be testing people upon entry? Or are they going to, are we going to have money to be testing every single player if the league is in financial instability? So while that technology may exist, we have to, look at it from the business side as well, is that it is going to cost money to implement a lot of those changes. And, that may be a factor. Maybe that technology exists, but maybe the league or certain teams don't have the means to make that technology work in order to make the games go on.
If they do close, somebody suggested this. I'm sure I'm stealing somebody. Somebody probably already came up with this. But somebody was suggesting, I think tongue in cheek, they're like, oh, well, are you going to put like cardboard cutouts of fans in the stadium? And Eric, would you not pay Would you not pay money to have a cardboard cutout of you put into Dignity Health Sports Center stadium? Like, would you not do that? I don't know. Knowing my ego, I would totally pay some money to have me,
Yeah.
like a cutout of me in the press box.
Yeah, I think it
So
was it the Belarusian league. There were some leagues that already did that. That before the whole lockdown came into play, they people could pay to, and they put jerseys on them. And we've been known to throw some silly money around on an auction or on a few items or two. So of course I'd easily pay money to have my cutout or my stunt double, my dummy in stadium. So some could argue the dummy is when I actually show up live, but yeah, but still.
Yeah, but still, I was going to say, no, I mean, the other part about that is we keep saying we're going to have Rolf Felcher on only so that way we can save the money of having to pay him on Cameo to sing us a song. So still working on Rolf Felcher.
He's
yeah,
next
I know,
on the
me
list.
too. He's next for sure. So anyway, we're going to continue to try to bring you as many interviews as possible. I feel like I'm going to run out of people eventually. I know a certain number of people. I can pull a certain number of those people. It's sort of like did you see that Zoom call? I think we've talked about this with the Zoom call. Actually, one of my friends, Kayla Knapp, who works social media for the Portland Timbers, Kayla and a bunch of some other very good social media savvies, like really smart and talented people, did a Zoom call where they tried to get the most famous person that they knew on the Zoom call. So I feel like,
I was going to say not to one up Kayla and what they did, but that was Katie Nolan did a version of it, I think, before them. Same idea. And so, yeah, people are having fun with it. And so that was kind of a cool. And I think Katie Nolan even ended up on that call with with that group.
I was going to say they know each other, so there's a thing there. But no, I thought it was great. So I feel that's sort of like what we're doing on this show lately. Is let me see what kind of famous person I can find to get on the show every time. Dan was great. Dan actually went to one of my favorite donut shops, which is how we sort of connected in order to get him on the show. So it was one of those things. All digitally. Don't worry, we weren't at the same donut shop at the same time within a 6 foot radius. I don't want people. You're breaking the rules. Let's talk a little bit about what the LA Galaxy are doing with the COG food truck, which is kind of fun. I know people have to have heard of COG Barbecue, by the way, if you're in LA or anywhere around LA. It seems like that. And if you're a Netflix person, then you should know who Chef Roy Choi is. And he is he's a really fun chef, and he does a show called Chef with Jon Favreau on Netflix. And they originally, Jon Favreau was in the movie Chef. This is all I actually watched the show. This is how I know. I had to ask my wife for some of the details, but I was like, okay. Yeah, so it was actually that movie Chef, which is a great movie if you want to cry a little bit and watch people cook food. It's wonderful. It really pulls at the heartstrings. Chef with Jon Favreau in it, but Jon Favreau, in order to be trained for that movie, went to Chef Roy Choi. So COG Barbecue is teaming up with the LA Galaxy on May 1st. So this is on Friday. We're recording on Thursday night. So tomorrow, as we're recording, the COG Barbecue food truck will be at Dignity Health Sports Park at their parking lot, and their goal there is that in collaboration with COG Barbecue and the LA Galaxies to feed 1,000 people from the city of Carson. So I think that's something cool. I just really like it. I like the mesh of my worlds combining and all this fun stuff. And I've been wanting to go get go to the COG food truck forever. I won't be there. I'm not going to go take. That's not. But if you're in need, and you know somebody in need who's in Carson, tell them about this because I think this is going to be a really cool thing.
And that's something that on Chef Roy Choi's Instagram page, he said that people donated on their website and via Venmo to help fund this. And so they help funded to get these meals paid for those in need. So if you want to go to his Instagram page, you can go and check it out there, or the COGI website. And again, it's going to go to those in need, residents of Carson. And LA Galaxy was generous. They basically donated the parking lot, so there's a place so the cars can drive up, and so the COGI trucks can be there. And I think, I don't want to gloss over it either. With food trucks now are you see a food truck on every corner, and it's definitely a thing. But COGI was like the OG LA food truck that made it fashionable, made it a cool thing.
Right.
And if you haven't had COGI, Korean street tacos, then you're missing out. And so obviously seeing what they've done once, we're in stage 3 or stage 4, once this all clears and you're able to do some pickup, definitely support that business, because he's working within the community to help people in the city of Carson, which obviously the LA Galaxy has ties to. And so it's nice to see that he's doing that as a gesture. Nice to see the LA Galaxy contributing. And so it's just like you said, a mesh of all the worlds coming together. This pandemic is really shining a light on a lot of the positives and how good people can be. I know sometimes people aren't always the best, or some people, you see some behaviors they make, man, I don't know how I feel about humanity. But there are a lot of aspects where this is really shining a light on how good people can be as well, and this is a perfect example of that. So big kudos to COG and to the LA Galaxy for working together on this.
By the way, the chat room has voted, and basically they've decided the next person I should get on is Robbie Keane. So they're
That's
not
fair.
at least they're setting my sights realistically. Of course, just try to get somebody who's on a different time zone in a different part of the world, and is one of the top famous people in the world. Just, hey, Josh, just get Rob. I'll just get on my phone and I'll call up Robbie Keane. I'll try. I'll see what I can do. I know some people.
Say, you know how much of a narcissist and my ego is inflated. I'm like, he liked one of my Instagram posts once. I mean, it's within the realm of possibility. Stranger things have happened.
It's cool. We can make that happen. No problem. So yeah. But anyway, go on Chef Roy Choi on Instagram, and you can donate there and sort of help that out. So anyway, I think that's really cool. Let's get on to a little bit more news. This one's a little more fun. Let's have some fun. We talked about MLS freezing the transfer window. I don't know if we talked about it, but I wrote an article about it. MLS froze the transfer window. Surprise. By the way, it was frozen the day that they decided to suspend the league. Surprise. So it was one of those articles that showed up on MLSsoccer.com. There was like, oh, well, this isn't common knowledge, and nobody has said anything. Oh, MLS, thanks for the heads up. So the transfer window was supposed to close on May 5th. This is the primary transfer window for Major League Soccer. It starts basically in February sometime, I think, and it goes all the way till May 5th. However that ends up happening, you get people onto your team, you register them in that window, and then they can be part of that. Now, we all know about the primary transfer window, or the secondary transfer window. It's the summer transfer window. Comes up on, I believe, July 7th this year is when it goes, and it goes for about 30 days. So you can look for that. We don't know whether or not that one is going to be frozen as well. We don't know what transfer windows are going on. Dennis DeClosa talked about it on Monday. He doesn't know what transfer windows are going. There's talk about adding a third transfer window. Okay, sure, why not? So all of these things are sort of up in the air. It seems like FIFA wants to sort of honor these transfer windows because contracts end on like June 30th, and there's a whole bunch of little things that happen that make it really difficult if you don't sort of abide by contracts and transfer windows and anything else. So contracts mostly end on June 30th, and then the transfer window opens, on July 7th, basically in Major League Soccer. So we don't know if the LA Galaxy will have any money, Eric. We don't know who will be available. We don't know any of these things, but there are rumors out right now. And they have, and we talked about it a little bit on Monday, but we're going to talk about one player in particular, Gonzalo Higuain, 32 years old, of course, Argentine. He was born in France. We talked about this a little bit on Monday, so go back and watch that with Dennis DeClosa. So some fun stuff there. Playing for Juventus. He is the older brother, by the way. I can't believe I have to sort of say it this way because Gonzalo Higuain was the bigger player than Federico Higuain, who, of course, was in Major League Soccer for 8 seasons with the Columbus Crew. I think he's over with DC United as like a player coach right now. But there's younger brother, 32 years old. Gonzalo Higuain seems to possibly have left Juventus. And there are rumors that he could be wanted by River Plate, who I think he grew up with at one point. I'd have to go back and really search the backside of that. But in Argentina, or, of course, the LA Galaxy, because Guillermo Barros-Schelotto mentioned him recently and how he has a good relationship with the Higuain family, which always helps. Same as with the Messi family. So all great things for Galaxy fans. But it's interesting to see that a 32-year-old player, the caliber of Gonzalo Higuain, could realistically be, Eric, if you and I wanted to connect some dots, be linked to the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, it really makes perfect sense. Having a brother who's familiar with the league, played in the United States before, the Argentine connection. Everyone who if you're an Argentinian, you know who Guillermo Barros-Schelotto is, and you know that he's a legend. So in terms of recruiting, that's something that works in your favor. I know when the Lakers had Magic Johnson working in the front office, they almost relied on that too much. Hey, it's Magic. Didn't you like basketball? Come check it out. So hey, you're from Argentina. Look, we have Guillermo Barros-Schelotto. Come check it out. But when you connect the dots, the age, the area of need, we know Chicharito, isn't going to be that answer. So to bring another forward, another goal scorer, someone who's shown that he's capable of putting away, I think his best years were when he was at Napoli. So it's one of those what is it? Form is temporary, class is permanent. When someone knows how to put away goals, they know how to put away goals. So even at 32, I think he's someone who would, be helpful to this LA Galaxy team. And so it just seems like everything makes sense. If he's not going to be in favor with Juventus, we know that they're going to be making pushes for Champions League, and he's maybe not at that top level that he was before. Then a logical next step may be to come to Major League Soccer and to apply his trade here. Federico Higuain had a lot of success in Columbus. He was basically they built the team around him for many years, and so if he saw that his brother, who again with all due respect, the less skilled brother was able to be basically a MVP caliber player in the league, that he probably has the confidence that he could come here and probably set the league on fire as well.
Yeah, it seems that way. This is we always talk about things that make sense. Now, what doesn't make sense is the LA Galaxy don't have any designated player spots. So okay, so you're going to have to get them on a discount now. But when you're looking at this transfer window and what's going to happen in the world of soccer, it's not just Major League Soccer, it is the world. And what's going to happen. I mean, Dennis DeClosa said out loud, he said he heard rumors of a 75% reduction in a fee that was asked for, and the club was still thinking about taking it. I mean, you could see a discount market this summer, and hopefully the LA Galaxy and hopefully Major League Soccer are allowed to make moves during the summer. I mean, I don't know, maybe they don't make any moves. Maybe all of these owners are still sitting here licking their wounds, sort of trying to figure out whether or not they have any money. Major League Soccer seems to have deep enough pockets that they're going to survive, that these teams are going to survive, Eric. But, if you're going to go bargain shopping, if you're going to look for a deal, then this transfer window could be that time. It could actually be a time for players to move away from some of these more financially hardship leagues that are really going to get nailed and come to the United States and play for Major League Soccer, which is maybe a more stable league or viewed as a more stable league right now with all the instability that's certainly going to follow, this pandemic. So it seems like there's an opportunity for Gonzalo Higuain to possibly be an LA Galaxy player. Whether there's a season or not is another thing, but it's an interesting sort of take on that.
That's actually part of the reason why I think it just makes sense, is because, with, the league in Italy, and Italy being one of the countries that was hardest hit, is, maybe not wanting to stay there and continue to play there. That's one factor. The other factor is if there's not going to be a season this calendar year, whatever contract or whatever deal, you can say, listen, we're not having a season this year. If we know that there's, a DP player on loan and we're not going to re-up that loan in 2022, and we're not going to, or 2021, excuse me, and we're not going to realistically have games until then maybe we could do this handshake, get this contract signed. And we know you're not going to play games this year, but next season, when it comes time, that's when we'll make this deal work. So yeah, maybe they don't have the DP slot. I keep messing that up. The DP slot now, but no one's playing soccer right now. So we're not talking about what's happening now. We're talking about what's going to happen a year from now. And so that might be when the deals get worked out. So I think it could still happen. Maybe not signing him to a contract to play now, but maybe with the agreement that once things pick up, that's when everything will be hashed out.
Well, it's fun to talk about, rumors for a second. It's certainly, at least for, 2 seconds, it's like, oh, that's fun. Oh, look, that was normal. That's normal soccer talk. Look at. Yeah, I know. It's an important part of this. Let's go to some questions now that we pulled from LA Galaxy Reddit. If you are not a Redditor, that's cool. LA Galaxy Reddit can be a fun place. I actually, for the most of the part, I think it's actually pretty tame. It's usually insightful. It's usually civil. Sometimes I think it's more civil than Facebook and Twitter, for sure. So you could go check it out. But I always love to give the people who are in LA Galaxy Reddit a chance to ask some questions, because I think Reddit is a better forum to sort of ask questions than Facebook or Twitter or anything else. So we always seem to get good ones. Let's go. I'm going to try to shorten this one as much as possible. This one comes from Jugular Vein. See, that's another reason I love Reddit, is we get crazy names. So Jugular Vein. And Jugular Vein says, assuming the season restarts, it seems like closed door games. Again, I'm paraphrasing this. He goes, do you see fans being charged to watch the games to make up for some of that lost income? Does the Galaxy need to revisit their TV contract with Spectrum? So that's the first question there. I'm going to say that LA Galaxy's TV contract with Spectrum is one of the richest in the league. And so if they're playing games and they're on TV, then the Galaxy will be getting paid money. And so the Galaxy will gladly take that money because it's probably more money than anybody else is going to get paid during that small window where we're going to be playing these closed door games. So I do not think that fans will be charged, although it might be a good idea to be like, hey, you don't get Spectrum. Well, just pay $20 to $5 or something like that, and you can actually watch the local games or something. There may be a chance for that. I doubt it because I think Spectrum has that.
I was going to say, if you're going to bank on a company to get it wrong and not make money off this deal, it's going to be Spectrum. It seems like they're going to find a way to bungle that. I've actually tried. I tried talking with them over the phone. Listen, I just want that channel. No, we do. They make it impossible to get that channel. But maybe with a pandemic, things will change. But like you said, the reason that there may be a rush to play these games is to fulfill those TV contracts. So that's already paid for. I think where you may see that happen is leagues like USL, somewhere where it's very heavily based on ticket entry. They might charge a nominal fee to maybe catch some of those games because they're not getting the rich TV contract. They're not getting that ticketed gate. You might see it there. But I think based on MLS, those TV deals are already done. They're already paid for. So I don't think that will be a feature for whatever coronavirus cup happens this year.
Yeah, it'll again. So Jugular Vein goes on and says, MLS teams are probably more financially well-footed than some European teams. Think Spain and Italy, maybe some even more so than Liga MX and bigger South American teams. So do you think that there will be a possibility of bigger names, players turning to U.S., Canada earlier in their careers with less places to choose to go to and assuming less money being available to spend? This was an Alexi Lawless thing we talked about, how he said maybe this is the chance for the U.S. to sort of close the gap on some of these leagues by going in and spending quote-unquote big but at bargain prices for some of this high-caliber talent that is younger and all those other things. I mean, it's a chance anyway. I want to get to the next one. I'm sure you would have something really intelligent to say about that, Eric, but we'll get to the next question.
I have thoughts.
Yeah. No, you're not allowed to have, not on this one.
Right. I'm going to throw in my thoughts. I'm going to cut you off.
Okay, go for it.
So in Spain and in Italy, a lot of those contracts, they throw hundreds of millions of euros and hundreds of millions of dollars, but that money is they're borrowing from banks, and they go into debt to get these players. So they're able to offer the bigger deal, but that they don't have that cash flow. So that's exactly why this is an opportunity to get those players, because they're those big clubs that are throwing, that cash to get the big player. They don't actually really have it. It's all on paper. And so this is an opportunity to capitalize on that.
Danger TRL says, is a June comeback more plausible now that the NBA and Major League Baseball are making plans for that time frame? I think we sort of talked about the pitfalls of coming back and what needs to happen. And Major League Baseball is different because they haven't started the season yet, Eric. So, you're looking, and they've already said they're going to have a shortened season if they have anything. So they've already basically said, we're canceling games. We're not going to have all the games, which makes sense. They play 162 games. It's so ridiculous. So many games. I'm always like, they could short. I was like, you could shorten the season to like 85, 90 games, and there's still a ton of games to go to. It's, it's tradition, so it's harder to do whenever you look at it. Is a June comeback more possible? I don't see it. Not yet. Not with the way that California is sort of handling things. And again, that's not a criticism. I think they're doing the right thing. I just don't. You're going to have to, as Dan Steres just said on the show, you're going to move us somewhere else. So where's that going to be, and how's that going to play out? It just seems like they're really trying to figure out a way to make this happen. I don't think June is reasonable. I could see July. I could see August. I could see something. I could see September. I could see, anything basically starting in probably July would make some more sense to me than June does. But maybe June is when they start training. As it's almost May right now. So, tomorrow on Friday when you listen to this, it's May. The next month after that is June. There you go. There's some basics from Josh on this podcast. Glad we got through that. What do you think, Eric? Does it make it any more plausible?
I'm surprised you didn't use the Justin Timberlake meme and say it's going to be May. We've been waiting all month to use that. But is a June comeback more plausible? I don't know that, but I do know that whatever the NBA does or whatever the MLB do, all eyes are going to be on them to see if it works. Because if the NBA plans to come back in June, they set something up and then it all falls apart on them because a player tests positive or something happens where they're unable to contain the players, then that's going to, throw everything out. And so I think that they are going to follow the lead of those leagues like the NBA and the MLB, but I don't know that it makes it more plausible, but it definitely gives you the framework. The MLS isn't going to be the league that goes out there and is the guinea pig. Other leagues are going to be more front facing, and then the MLS, there I go. And Major League Soccer is going to be able, I know, they lower the screen. They're going to be able to use that to their advantage to see this worked for this league, this didn't work for that league, and then they'll make the adjustments as they see fit.
All right, let's go to Esteban65. Esteban B65. Thanks, Josh and co-host. This is already my favorite one. Thanks, Josh and co-hosts for giving me giving me something to look forward to on Mondays and Thursdays. Was ticked we did so poor in your TFC sim game. By the way, this is a perfect chance for us to tell you out loud and on the show, no more of those. We're done. For the 7 people who watched them, we appreciated that and it was fun, but it's a lot of work for us. And it wasn't nearly the payoff in terms of and we're not that funny. I mean, I think I'm hysterical, but we're just really not that funny. It doesn't translate.
And I just think the novelty ran its course. In the first few weeks of quarantine, you say, okay, let's watch some FIFA simulation. This will be fun. We'll have some fun with it. By the 8th game away at Philadelphia, you're like, you know what? Maybe this isn't as fun as we initially thought it was going to be. And now that every MLS account team is doing it, and everyone's run their FIFA sim at this point. So I think we're kind of over it. And like you said, all 12 people who watched, I'm sorry. We're wrapping it up, but I think it ran its course, and we had fun while we did it. Go back and watch the old ones.
Yeah, exactly. There's some good ones in there. There's some really bad ones in there. By the way, I should tell everybody, I simmed the Houston game. I simmed the Houston game because I would sim them and then I would send them to Eric and I would text Eric as I was usually simming them, telling him, oh, this is going to be a good game. We have something to talk about, the whole deal. So the Houston game that I simmed was 0-0 until the 90th minute. There were no highlights at halftime besides the ball being kicked off. That was it. That was the entire highlight. And then Houston scored in the 90th minute. So you didn't want to watch that game. I didn't want to do that to you. You deserve happiness, and I can't cheat to make the Galaxy win every time for you. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Right, so anyway, I just wanted. Okay. Yes. Esteban B65 continues. Doesn't it make more sense to divide up the MLS teams into 2 to 4 regions that don't really mix and just playing games within the region? Also, we're in a different place than the NBA because they're at the end of their season, where MLS is resuming the beginning. This is we sort of touched on most of this. Would moving teams to a city hubs really make sense? I mean, I think Dan Steres raises some really good questions. So do I think it makes sense? Maybe. It could make some sense. It doesn't seem like it does. And certainly we're behind on the technology. It seems like that would be another expense for clubs to have to take up. And so, those are all important things. His final thing, by the way, which again, this is my favorite one. He's asking where Jared Dubois is. Jared is alive, by the way. Jared is actually doing a show with Jason Davis, by the way, if you wanted to watch it. I think it's funny. Yeah, it's JD and the Rod, which is a little pop culture, a lot of football. So you can follow that as well. But yeah, Jared's still alive, I promise. And if Eric decides that he's busy and Larry can't do it and Sophie can't do it, I'll see if Jared wants to come back on. That's not a problem. Just remember the one constant, me, baby. Let's see. What are your thoughts? I know it was almost too much even for me to handle. LA Galaxy's.
You need to circle the wagons back to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, LA Galaxy's Edge says, what are your thoughts on the NWSL, and do you think the Galaxy would join or MLS partner up with them? I would hope that the Galaxy figure out a way to do an NWSL team. Eric, don't you think, before the whole economic downturn, I would say that the time was pretty much right, but apparently I don't know what I'm talking about. I didn't expect the global pandemic.
Yeah, all signs, like you said before this, seem to point to it makes sense to have Los Angeles-based NWSL team. We're past the LA Soul days where that project didn't work out. I think the market was ready for it, but I think right now it's just not the time. We don't know if the league and say what you will about Major League Soccer, but it's pretty established at this point. So to take on risk, with the WNBA and how the NBA honestly kept the league afloat, for that sake. MLS would need to do something similar or if the Galaxy were to get involved to help keep that afloat and maybe take on a loss for a little bit. So I think just right now is not the right time for them to take on a loss. Does it make sense in the long run? Absolutely. As someone who has a daughter and loves women's soccer, I think, I'd be happy to welcome it here in LA. Just realistically, I don't know if it happens right now.
I was driving today and I saw a young lady jogging on one of the sides, and she had a U.S. soccer crest on, and I'm like, I didn't see that growing up. That didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see that even today, I was like, oh man, yes, absolutely. I thought about honking, and then I said, no, you're not allowed to do that. But I was more like, it was U.S. soccer wise, and I thought that was really cool. I remember
not honking. Well done.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it was during the 2014 World Cup. I think that was it. I was driving and I saw people wearing full-on USA jerseys, and I got to honk because they had just won, and like they waved, and so it's just such a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
So the soccer community is, a lot more tight than you think it is, and it's starting to spread, and you can see that everywhere. So hopefully this MLS delay, hopefully this World Soccer delay. I mean, I guess the one good thing sort of out of this is that it's not just MLS that's stopped right now, Eric. It's the entire world, and so everybody's missing it the same. So nobody's really gaining any traction or doing anything, that's getting up above anybody else. But how teams come back, how leagues come back, really could set themselves up for the future, and whether they gain traction or whether they lose traction. And some of the leagues that are long-standing, we talk about La Liga, Serie A, they're not in the best financial positions, and so you could be seeing the beginning of a downturn for them that could see MLS pick up a bunch of slack. So again, where there's negatives or where there's pullback, Eric, there's always room for advancement as well. And if MLS is in a financial position to be able to advance themselves, this could be one of the biggest jumps forward. And in 5 years, we could be talking about how the pandemic in 2020 totally changed the way that MLS is viewed around the world because of the subsequent transfer windows that happened in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, you said a lot of words there. All I heard was Ronaldo to the LA Galaxy.
Gee, big surprise. Big surprise. Wouldn't surprise me. But again, we're talking about Gonzalo Higuain as well. I mean, these are big names. Obviously not as big as Ronaldo. I didn't want to make the comparison. Don't want to have the Portuguese side of things get all mad at me. But no, it could happen. It's just going to be an interesting time to sort of watch. All right. Let's see. Is there anything else you want to get to?
No, I think we're good. And again, another week of no soccer, and we still managed to speak for an hour about it. It's spectacular.
We're getting really good at just BSing our way through this stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's not a compliment, right?
No, probably not. All right, go ahead. Tell people where they can find you, and we'll get on out of here, Eric.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at GISHammer. You can also find me on Instagram at Galaxy PROFOUL. Still looking on the quest for 1K there. And then I'm also now on Twitch. So if you want to see some of our Cosmo SC games, you can follow me on Twitch at EVHammer and the number 9.
All right. And if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. CornerTheGalaxy.com, articles, podcasts, all our videos, all that fun stuff is right there. Big thanks to the LA Galaxy and Dan Steres for coming on the show. Always great to have Dan on. All right, for Eric the Portuguese Hammer, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on CornerTheGalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody. See ya.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on CornerOfTheGalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.